Every year, popular YouTuber Game Maker's Toolkit hosts a Game Jam, and this year is no exception. It's been 6 years since my last Game Jam, and I've been itching to make some more games lately, so I figured I'd give it a shot. The theme this year was Roll of the Dice. Now, as soon as I heard this, I had plenty of great ideas, as you can tell by this live reaction.
I'll let you get started. Best of luck, and have fun.
Okay. So I started by creating a document with all of my ideas and concepts and thoughts. My idea was to make a 2D platformer, and the levels would be on the side of a 3D cube. In other words, a die. You would roll the die, and then whatever side you landed on, that was the level that you played. It just barely sticks to the theme of Roll of the Dice, but I'll iterate on it later. For now, I'm just going to jump into Godot and start building something. Now, I'm not really a fan of Godot's default skybox and environment settings, so I'm going to fix that by making my own skybox. Nothing crazy, just slapping in a couple of gradients and drawing some clouds. That's looking much better. Now at this point I'm not sure how to project a 2D level on the side of a 3D cube, but I figure I'll start by making the most important mechanic of the game first, rolling the die. Making the cube a rigid body will give it its gravity and physics, and then I wrote a script to apply a random upwards force that would... one second. That would gently roll the cube. Not too shabby. Next I wrote a camera controller that would follow the cube at an offset, so we'd always be watching the cube. And then I finally looked into the most dreaded part of all this, trying to figure out how to project a 2D world on top of a 3D cube. It actually turned out to be not too difficult. All I had to do was use viewport textures. I'll create a completely separate two-dimensional scene, and a viewport texture will act like a window into this other world. And would you look at that? It's actually working! What, you can't see it? Now let me zoom in. Do you see it? Right there! Now that I've got the most difficult part out of the way, I think it's time that I refine the platformer controls a bit. I want this game to look and feel fun to play. But right now it feels like you're moving through molasses. I didn't slow this footage down, this is just how slow he's moving. Increasing the speed and gravity is a quick way to make the game feel a little bit faster. And adding a variable jump height will give the player more control over those more precise jumps. I added the first hazard to the game, some floor spikes, a staple for most 2D platformers. And I copied and pasted the levels to each side of the cube. I went back to the camera controller, and now when the cube lands, it'll select the level that's face up. When you reach the end of a level, the cube will re-roll and select a new level. There's no influence over the roll, so each level you get is completely random. Though right now there's only 2 levels, and level 1 takes up 5 sides of the dice, so the odds are pretty weighted. At this point I decided to add a new mechanic to the game, a jump counter. The number of jumps you have left are shown above your player's head, and once you use up all your jumps, you don't get them back until you die or reset the level. Each level gives you a certain amount of jumps at the start, and if you can complete the level without using them all, they'll carry over to the next level. It's something I thought would incorporate the theme into the game a little bit more. I spent the rest of day 1 improving the scenery in the 3D world. But it was getting pretty late and I wanted to make sure I had enough rest for tomorrow, so it was time for bed. I began day 2 by adding some polish to the game. A particle explosion every time the cube is rolled, some squash and stretch animations to the player when he jumps and when he lands, and a third level with some moving saw blades. Around this time I added numbers to the side of the die. I wanted a nifty way to tell the player how many jumps you got for a level, so I made a little animation to show how the number is added to your jump counter at the beginning of each level. This took me quite a while to make, but I think it was worth it. I also created level 4, which gives you 2 very clear paths to take, but one is obviously more dangerous than the other. I also added a life bar. This should help the player think about their choices a little more carefully, while still adding the threat of a game over. I really wanted to add my own flair to the game, so I made some sprites for Cubics, my little persona. Just 5 sprites is all I should need, and I'll let animation do the rest. I dropped the sprites into the game and... oh. It only took me about 30 minutes of wasted time to figure out that the squash and stretch animations were overriding the size of my sprite, so that was a fun debugging session. But hey, Cubics is in the game and he's looking pretty good. Earlier in the day I had asked my brother if he could sketch up some storybook pages for the game, and man, he did not disappoint. I wrote a little poem to go along with the pictures, but I'll let you read it if you decide to play the game yourself. Which you can do, check out the link in the description. I had spent most of day 2 adding polish and refining things that were already there, but the game still didn't feel complete. There was no way to win, and that was something I knew I had to fix by tomorrow. But most importantly, I wanted to make sure I had uploaded the game before the end of the day. I wanted to make sure I had at least something uploaded, even if it wasn't complete. So even though level 5 was broken, I reluctantly uploaded the game and called it a night. As you can imagine, day 3 was spent adding the final touches to the game. An interesting title screen, and the last level, level 6. I was so focused on trying to get the game out the door that I forgot to record footage for most of the day. Most of what you see here is from the final product. I added sound, music, and a win condition, which is simply to beat 12 levels. It wasn't the win condition I originally had in mind, but it'll do for a jam. Yeah, that's about it. I was lucky enough to upload my game before the influx of entrants uploaded theirs, taking down itch.io's servers once again. All in all, I felt really great about how this game turned out, and I hope you enjoy playing it. At the time of recording this, the voting has already finished for the jam, and I got an overall score of 715. Out of 6,000 entrants, that's not bad. Most of the comments said that the game was fun to play, but the levels were very repetitive, and oftentimes people would play the same level over and over again with no change in gameplay. Which I understand. There were things I wanted to add that I just couldn't get to in time. Repetitive gameplay was definitely not something that I wanted to encourage. If I ever revisit this game, I have a lot of ideas that I'd like to take back to it. Overall, this whole jam experience has been a blast, and I'd love to do it again next year. Oh, and sorry for not uploading a video in a long time. I have some other projects in the pipeline and I'll be ready to show them to you very soon. But yeah, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.